Look, firstly, I'd like to say thank you to Kerry for inviting me and actually putting this gold conference, it's the only gold conference, pure gold conference in Australia, on, and she's had a gap for 3 years or so, so I think welcome back. And Mark, were you? Well, I wasn't invited. Mark continued to last, so thank you, Kerry. Look, this is not going to be a technical dissertation like we might have heard from some of our colleagues. This is a presentation about the excitement of discovery, the good luck, the good fortune that goes with it, that ends up with where I'm lucky enough to be chairman of De Grey, and this magnificent discovery that is leading the way in Australia at the moment quite clearly, and it's probably the largest discovery in the world for 30 years. Some people can probably argue that, but it's that sort of ilk. So if we get on with it, disclaimers, you can read that at your leisure. This is something that I'm sure you've not all missed during the course of this conference, and that's been good. But what I will say, firstly, thank you to the Garryarra people who we have a mining lease as a result of. I was very taken. I was up in Kalgoorlie at the large Diggers and Dealers conference, and there's a chap called Lyndon Brownlee who gave a welcome to country. He's a Kalgoorlie councillor. It was beautiful. It was very inclusive. He ended up on stage singing with his mother and his brother, and I would encourage, you can actually find it on YouTube. That was wonderful. The other thing I was taken with is I've got a couple of friends that work for the Clontarf Foundation. This is unusual advocacy from me, but they had a lot of the Clontarf boys there, and as these friends tell me, 95% of Aboriginal males that find their way into jail are recidivists. They return to jail. And they just said the Clontarf boys do not go to jail. So if you're looking to donate money to the Aboriginal cause, Clontarf is not a bad spot to start. They're terrific. I will also note the mining industry as a whole has great relationships for the most part with its communities and are doing a lot to make sure that these Aboriginal lads are finding their way into employment. In Kalgoorlie, it's probably Northern Star, Linus, Gold Road, doing a lot of work in this area. So it's a real positive for the mining industry. So the Pilbara, in the early days, so the Pilbara is in the Pilbara Craton. Most of the gold in Australia has been found in the Yilgarn Craton. They're the same age, same rocks, etc. So why wouldn't there be gold in the Pilbara Craton? So our comedian last night gave me a dig, that's wrong, but he said there's no fucking gold in the Pilbara. It was a quote from someone. We got on to our company, a gentleman by the name of Ed Esches out of Melbourne. He's quite a well-known geologist. And he said, well, there's no reason there shouldn't be any gold up in the Pilbara. And there has been sprinklings of gold in the Pilbara. So we're in the Pilbara Craton and we have proven that there is gold there. We'd love somebody else to find a discovery such as we have, because it would increase the interest in the area that we have. So you can read all of that. So this story is, I was fortunate enough 4 years ago now to stand up at the Diggers and Dealers and receive the award for the best emerging new company. And I got up and I said, you know, what an industry is this mining industry when a mug like me can stand up here as chairman of what was then a $2 billion company. And we'd come from $30 million to that number within 12 months. It was probably an 8-month ride. And you know, when you get onto these discoveries, it is just, it's unbelievable. This is, of course, during the COVID period of 2020, and we just had a wonderful period. In Perth, we were locked into Western Australia. You can laugh about that, but we had a bit of freedom within Western Australia, so it was actually a good time. So I won't go into a lot of metrics. You can read that. I think the point to make here is that these NPVs, you know, in a way they don't look all that exciting, but our AISC is reported to be under $1,300, is forecast to be under $1,300 an ounce. We're forecast to make 550,000 ounces per annum, and if you slotted in a figure of $3,700 per ounce, you can work that out. We're making $2,400 an ounce on 550,000 ounces. We're not making that at the moment because that's 3 years hence, but this is a large project. It should be a very profitable project. Now we'll get into the discovery side of life. So I always enjoy this one. Gold in Australia is discovered in Ballarat, Bathurst, Bendigo, very rich goldfields back in the 1850s. What a lot of Victoria seem to forget is Ballarat and Bendigo really built Melbourne, and now they're full of activists, of course, that don't like mining. But and then it's like, this is not some chap who's got his wheelbarrow and wandered up the east coast, but they haven't gone west because you've got the Nullarbor and there wasn't a lot of gold in South Australia. And it's just interesting, the run of these discoveries through that period, and it must be coincident, but it's we get into Western Australia in Halls Creek in 1885. Malina and Tourament are on our property. They were discovered in 1888, before Kalgoorlie was discovered. And of course then Kalgoorlie's down here in 1893 and Coolgardie 1892. I can say the conditions, oddly, in Kalgoorlie are much more pleasant than where we are. So it seems as though the gold explorers, prospectors were quite happier in Kalgoorlie and much easier to get to too. It's only a 600-kilometre wheelbarrow ride across from Perth. But so Kalgoorlie took the mantle, and it's produced, as we know, 200 million ounces or thereabouts in the greater Kalgoorlie area. Jim Withnell, we have a Withnell project, a Withnell deposit, and this is an early thing. This is, you can see this in the Treasury building in Perth. It's when they discovered gold at Malina. They sent a telegram saying gold discovered at Malina. Jim Withnell picked up a stone to throw at a crow. And the treasurer came back and said, what became of the crow? That was his main interest. So that's I guess it's a true story. I think they've got the telegram somewhere in the historical archives. So then we get this article by dry blower Robin Bromby in the Mining News. And I used to do a shtick about the Long and Winding Road, and I'd say I was the Ringo Starr to the three talented geologists, John, Paul and George, one of which is over here, whose name's Phil actually, but anyway, we'll get to Phil later on. But very lucky to have three very talented geologists who all had their own, perhaps different expertise. And we had, at this stage, we were contrasting ourselves to Pilbara's potential to Kirkland Lake in Canada, Ashanti in Ghana and Kalgoorlie. And Robin Bromby says, well, we'll see. And that's on the 9th of May 2019. So that's quite an interesting time. And it was a bold statement of ours to say that this is the contrast. That was also driven by Ed Eschers, which is fine. So we move forward. Here we go. All right, okay, so this is just a bit of a timeline. So De Grey listed in 2003. We discovered a Windgina gold deposit in 2004. We had a platinum joint venture on the same tenements with Impala. Beginning of exploration program in Argentina, which was a technical success, which means nothing happened. We bought a gold project in New Zealand. This is all before my time, may I say, but it's typical of a lot of junior explorers. They're always having to move to the next opportunity, the next one that they think they can raise capital on. South African diamond project. So I'm somewhere starting around here. Conglomerate gold discovery. I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. That was a big thing in the Pilbara, and Kerry had Eric Sprott, who's a very famous gold investor, at one of her gold conferences, and he got up and described the Pilbara as having a lake of gold. And I thought that was quite a bold statement. And these conglomerate gold, I'll show you a nugget shortly. It's a real story. Geologically, it's real, it's there. Can it be mined economically? That's the question, and the answer is probably not. So we identify here, this is the interesting period, multiple intrusion hosts. So this is when you start thinking some of the guidance for you all. You don't need to be buying De Grey. You want to buy De Grey when we're 4.5 cents. You want to buy Spartan when it's 26 cents, as we heard from Simon Jackson, not when it's $1.35. I mean, it's probably still got something to run. So Ron Manners and Dennis O'Mara, two well-known Perth identities, listed it in 2003. Gold mining at Indy, we actually had a heap leach there at Indy. So I joined as director, and Craig Nelms, a great mate of mine, in 2013, at the end of 2013. Now, there's an indication to buy. Look at how the market reacted. It didn't react at all. So, but of course, when you see me joining the board, you should be buying. These are the pictures of the conglomerate gold. They're little nuggets that are found underneath a certain scenario under the black granite of the, God, Phil, I've forgotten the name of it, the road. Anyway, they are in existence, a lot of occurrences throughout the Pilbara. It's not a lake of gold, but there's still a lot of prospectors who go and find them. There's a lot of prospectors in the region. We have a run there. If you can see, when we discovered it, we went from 5 cents to 35 cents in the space of a week, and we ended up attracting a couple of major investors in Kirkland Lake. DGO Gold, I've mentioned Ed Esches, they invest in us in 2018, and Ed and Bruce joined the board, and that's when they joined the board, and then our shares start going up, and good luck to them. If I was them, I'd say that's because I joined the board, but this is just prior to the discovery too. So, and that's really what you're seeing with that increase there. Gold Road enter the register as a 19% shareholder back in 2022 or so. They've been a good shareholder, no complaints about them. This is the tenement package when I started. There's a gap in there. The northeastern part was joint ventured out for base metals. The southwestern part was joint ventured out for gold when I get involved. So we don't have any involvement at all. Hemi is on that southwestern part. That was always part of the tenement package. But since then, and this is where we've added it to, we've got to that size. That is now 3,500 square kilometres of land through a number of joint ventures, acquisitions, etc. in a gold-bearing district, and we retain high hopes. Talk to Phil in the booth later. We retain high hopes for further discovery in the region. We're certainly still drilling for exploration purposes. So that's our package of land. So this is how we get through to the discovery. So Tourament, you can see some of these diggings. This goes back to 1888. It's now a home for ghost bats. So this creates an environmental issue for us. It wasn't a home for ghost bats before we dug it in 1888, but that's not affecting the Hemi project. That's our next projects that we will work through. So Andy Beckwith, who's our chief geologist, or was our chief geologist, says this is a developing new style and host to gold mineralisation opens up a whole new dimension to additional targeting in the Pilbara Gold Project and the Pilbara region in general. So he's basically saying to the explorers out there, go and look for intrusions. This is something new. I asked a simple question, well, do we have any more on our own ground? This is an indication, you've got somebody making these sort of statements, maybe there's something here. We've got historical gold production in the region. This is just a little aside. We had another gold project where we had rights to drill it, and Andy's made this statement, and you can see that's quite an impressive gold nugget. It's very crystalline, which means it hasn't travelled very far. And he said, this would be the richest and most spectacular gold veining and nuggets I've seen in my whole career. Great walk-up target. We drilled it and found nothing, and yet the prospectors that we were dealing with are still finding gold, just prospecting down to there, whatever, they're 5 metres or so. So we don't actually have that tenement or have any rights on that tenement. We've got tenements all around it, and I think we still remain hopeful that that's come from somewhere not too far away. Closing in on the target. I should be reading down there. So then we identify these multiple new targets, and you can see up there Scooby, Hemiphagia, Antwerp, Electronus, Shaggy. Apart from Shaggy, that was already named. We've got Shaggy and Scooby, you know where that's come from. The others are all doves, and we've continued to name them after birds for whatever reason. The geologists always do that. They don't ask the chairman about these things. But these had historical ore grade intercepts. They were identified as intrusions, and we still haven't drilled them, but they had pretty good intercepts to start with. And then there's so we hadn't drilled at all at Hemi, which is what becomes Hemi. So I'm just struggling to actually see this a bit. Could walk past here. Okay, so this is when you should be buying. We released this on the 17th of December 2019. These are air core results. I'm involved with a couple of other junior companies, and they get excited if we get 8 metres, 4 metre intercepts at 0.2 grams per tonne. Look at these air core results, 43 at 3.5 grams per tonne, finishing in mineralisation, 25 at 2.7. So these become Brolga and, Aquila. This is when you should be buying. You should be seeing those. The market did not move. We were at 4.5 cents at the time. We go into our Christmas break, Christmas lunch, feeling pretty happy about it. But the market did not move, and you could have bought as many of this stock as you wanted for the next 2 months, really. So, Phil, I've mentioned him earlier. You can talk to him in the booth. He's a man of few words, but he's always worth listening to. We started our RC program, and he's out there drilling, sending texts through, and we used to get these messages from him. So that was the excitement that the guys are having on the rig, guys and girls actually, because my daughter was out there at the same time too. So, and then we come up with these results. These are RC, so they suddenly get more credibility. This is early February because we've got out there as soon as we can. And you can see the quality of the results. Again, if somebody earlier was talking about when you should invest, we had North American institutions investing on the back of this result. So that's really, the market came in, Invesco, Van Eck, a lot of big companies, big institutions saw these results and said, right, there is something there, which have gone on and proven. Again, more results. That 93 at 3.3 was just sensational, and we did have an intersection that showed pretty well every metre was going from 3 to 3.5 grams of that 93. It's not being carried by one significant intersection. You've got to let me get to my video. I do like this. You just no, I told you I'd be going over. This is interesting. This gets to the luck.
The music's going to start playing.
This gets to luck. These were old air core holes that didn't quite get to the mineralisation, or it's just touching the mineralisation from 2005, 2006. We get there, recognise it as intrusion, and then this is what it becomes, which is Ducon, which is carrying 2 million ounces now. So that's the fortune of drilling, the luck of geology in some respects. So this, I'm at the video now. You want to see this, don't you? So look, everything is big in the Pilbara. We're not the biggest project by a long shot. We're the biggest gold project up there. But you've got iron ore projects, you've got big oil and gas projects, etc. The iron ore projects, they're moving 500 million, if not more, tonnes per annum. I don't need morning tea. So this is just a fun video that gives you an idea of the scale of what we're doing. Obviously contrasting to Sydney. We've got one for Melbourne, we've got one for Perth, we've got one against the super pit. You can see all those in the booth as well. There we go.
Wow.
So we've tried to do this as close to scale as we could. So the Brolga starter pit is wonderful in that we pay back all our capital from Brolga. It's got a strip ratio of 1 or thereabouts. It's very consistent ore, and it's carrying, again, 2 million ounces or so. So we don't even need to open up the other pits before we've paid back capital effectively. And you can see the amount, these are the pit shells, you can see the amount of gold that is outside the pit. This is what's leading us to look to underground or eventually go deeper, and we are still drilling to work out how much to underneath that to keep actually adding to those resources. We've got to put the waste dumps and the tailings in yet, Kerry.
Come on then. It's bloody huge.
Oddly, the one...
Out in the Blue Mountains in the
Oddly, the one in Kalgoorlie, when we contrast it to Kalgoorlie, we're trying to contrast it to the super pit. And what it ends up showing is that the super pit itself is actually pretty bloody impressive. So it doesn't dwarf the super pit by any stretch.
Wow. Become the Blue Mountains. Wow.
So in finishing up, what you need to look for is air core results like ours, and then you can buy, because they were spectacular. So thank you, Kerry.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Sorry for going over.